We used to brag about our extensive Pokemon trading card collections with the sheer glee only a child could experience, but these collectors have taken that to a whole new level in adulthood with their insane collections. Let's check out these outrageously awesome video game collections featuring all things Nintendo. Yeah, we understand that you were really proud of your pet rock collection at one point. We've all been there. But what we're really proud of is our fantastic collection of video content. Click the subscribe button and see what we're talking about. Without further ado, here are 8 outrageous video game collections to be seriously jealous of. Outstanding Nintendo 64 Collection. YouTube user Lithium017 has quite the collection of Nintendo merchandise. It seriously would make any Nintendo fan jealous. He even shoots YouTube videos in his Nintendo room, and we just can't seem to get enough of all the stuff he's collected over the years. The 29-year-old based out of Ontario, Canada's real name is Dan. He didn't want to release his last name, which is totally understandable. We wouldn't want anyone trying to steal his awesome stuff. His collection is worth an astonishing $500,000, which is pretty impressive for something that just started by saving up birthday funds for a Nintendo 64 in 1998. Dan has an impressive collection, but it's not the biggest one out there. The most unique item in his collection is the Nintendo 64 Millennium 2000 controller. There were only about 1,000 of these made. We haven't seen many, but we did recently spot one listed for $5,000. And when most N64 controllers, and even nicer ones, are going for around $30, you know you have something really special in your hands. His collection also includes around 20 different Nintendo 64 systems from all over the world. They're identical on the inside, but the exterior is what makes them so sought after. And hey Dan, if you're out there listening to this, invite me over, will you? The Cartridge Collector. Some of us obsess over keeping our retro games in pristine condition, but one man by the nickname of the Cartridge Collector, love the alliteration, has a very unique and almost fully complete NES collection. The 35-year-old can be found sporting his Nintendo love, and if you ask the average video game enthusiast how many officially licensed games Nintendo released in North America that they have in their collection, they probably wouldn't know, but this guy truly knows his stuff and answers without a second thought, 677. The story of how he got into collecting isn't particularly unique, but his vast collection of NES games sure is. His older brother received a Nintendo one year as a gift, and he watched him and his friends play for hours until one day he was old enough to play. His first owned game was Super Mario Bros., and from there, his love of Nintendo would continue. He even made it into the Guinness World Record books for having the highest score in Kid Icarus. So it only made sense that he would fall in love with the idea of collecting NES games as he got older. The collection grew as his friends and family moved away. He used to buy games for pennies on eBay and then have them shipped together for around $5 or $6, which would add up to about $7 or $8 for 100 games if he was lucky enough to buy from the same seller. This gave him more obscure titles like Barbie, Top Gun, and the RoboCop series. He even once had one of the rarest games in any NES collection, Nintendo World Championships, and today a copy like that can sell for around $15,000. But he had to sell it because he needed the cash. The collection was put up on eBay for $25,000, which sort of feels like a steal for an almost complete NES cartridge collection. The Legend of Zelda Collection. Usually, if you're cosplaying as Zelda, and quite well we might add, you aren't gonna have another bizarre hobby. Or are you? This woman from Norway not only makes a spot-on Zelda, but she was also recognized and put in the Guinness Book of World Records for her outstanding Legend of Zelda collection. There are more than 1,816 individual items from the classic game series, and it's pretty impressive, including card games, life-size statues, costumes, stand-ins, and even life-size inflatable dolls. She began her collection when she was living with her parents and first began cosplaying as Princess Zelda. Her love of the game began in 1994 when she first played The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, but her most prized piece actually comes from the 2000 release of The Legend of Zelda: Majora's Mask. She has a Zorax, which is the guitar made out of fishbone. The guitar was modeled after the Guitar of Waves featured in The Legend of Zelda: Majora's Mask, and it's quite possibly the coolest thing we've ever seen in a collection. This guitar is easily one of the most rare and exotic guitars created for Nintendo fans as a grand prize sweepstakes giveaway in 2000, so how she got her hands on this bad boy is beyond us. But with a collection of close to 2,000 Legend of Zelda items, she's definitely deserving of it. I thought I was all cool with my Majora's Mask 3DS. Well, time to step up the collection. Largest collection of video game memorabilia. Brett Martin, current holder of the largest collection of video game memorabilia by the Guinness Book of World Records, may appear to have somewhat of a nerdy intro in his video. But hey, when you have over 8,030 items in your collection, we think it's okay to be a little bit nerdy. Dare we even say cool while we're at it? He calls his area where he stores the collection the Video Game Memorabilia Museum, and that seems like a fairly fitting title. So if you're ever in the Colorado region and you're dying to check out some of his unique and rare items, perhaps he'll show you around sometime. His collection began 12 years ago with his first item being given to him by his parents. It was a tiny statue of Mario holding a mushroom from 1989. His obsession with collecting items grew from there. He even has a bunch of never before released to the public prototypes of some of our favorite characters. As a prototype, it's the only figure in the world of that particular line, and we think it's pretty cool that he has a few in his own collection to brag about. Oh, and did we mention this awesome Nintendo fan even has a YouTube channel featuring his collection in some of his videos? You can find him at NightRam56. Probably the coolest part of his collection is the incredibly rare set of 4 plush characters from the Star Fox series, and the fact that they're in immaculate condition. Brett lost 4 auctions to a better price for these, but he finally managed to get his hands on this N64 era set. Yep, name a price, Brett. I'll pay it to see this stuff. I'm packing my bags and going to Colorado. But first, the rest of this video. Enormous cataloged Nintendo library collection. To Aaron, his massive video game collection is one of his most prized possessions, but of course his children and his family come before that, and so he sadly must say goodbye to his enormous video game collection that he's selling for $164,000 on eBay. Aaron, in his early 30s, thought that this might be the most opportune time to sell his beloved collection since it's already packed away and he could use the money for future expenses. He discussed that after having children, he had less time to dedicate to his retro gaming collection that he's amassed, and he was hoping to pass on his love of Nintendo to his kids in the future, but it seems like they could use the money right now instead. Aaron's collection is enormous, and if he did keep the collection, his children would get to see not just a collection of video games, but complete sets for popular systems like the Super Nintendo, Nintendo 64, the Game Boy handheld consoles, and even a few of the Sega consoles. He even has all of the games divided into sectioned off labeled libraries with their specific console. A man after my own heart. I organize my game collection on my days off. We might as well just hand him the Dad of the Year award already, because we can't imagine how difficult it would be to get rid of something this awesome. Largest Nintendo collection. If you want to go big, you go really big. Or that was the idea for this 33-year-old Dubai police officer when he first started his enormous undertaking. He earned the Guinness World Records title for owning the largest Nintendo collection, and excuse us while we go try to close our jaws from the sheer awesomeness of it. Emirati Aman bin Fad has over 8,000 Nintendo accessories, systems, and software that he displays in his home, and his collection will only continue to grow as new things come on the market. He says his love stems from his childhood, where he enjoyed playing video games, but it slowly became an extreme obsession for him. 20 years ago, he began his quest to end up having one of the world's largest Nintendo collections. It began quite innocently, just asking his parents for the latest video games or consoles as gifts for birthdays and holidays. He said as he got older, his interest in rare and old consoles for his collection increased, so he would sometimes travel all across Europe trying to get his hands on them before others. Man, I lack discipline. I won't even go downtown to buy a piece I want for my collection. The rarest thing in his collection is the Nintendo M8 demo unit, a display unit dating back to the 1980s. He said the hobby of collecting has turned out to be quite expensive, and he has spent a lot of money tracking down rare items for his collection. He doesn't ever intend to sell the pieces he's collected over the years, and states that this 20-year project is just the beginning. Largest collection of Super Mario memorabilia. You know you have quite the impressive collection when you earn the title of world's biggest Super Mario fan, just as Mitsugu Kikai has. The 31-year-old from Tokyo, Japan is well known for his giant collection of Mario-themed memorabilia, and it's a pretty outstanding collection. Some have chalked up his love for the Nintendo series to being born the same year Nintendo released their first Super Mario video game, although we don't know if fate has much to do with it. One of the first things his parents bought him for his now extraordinarily large Mario collection was a Super Mario cereal bowl, but he was too young to remember it. As he began to get older, he started to collect everything Mario he could get his hands on, and his collection now has over 5,400 Super Mario items, and it won't stop anytime soon. He's a pretty humble guy as well, stating that he never tried to become a top collector, but just loved Mario from his youth, and the collection grew from that. One of the rooms in his house is entirely dedicated to his collection, and many of the items had to be left behind at his parents' house, although perhaps one day he'll have a museum or something large enough to store all of his cool Mario memorabilia. A Nintendo Specialist's Collection. One of the coolest blogs, called BeforeMario.com, is ran by Eric Vosquill, and part of the series has him traveling around to meet other video game collectors. In one of the sections, he gets to meet Sander Slutweg in his home near Amsterdam, and this guy has one of the most impressive collections today. His collection is pretty varied, and it spans many of his interests, but it's his love for Nintendo and most notably Gunpei Yokoi that is so important. Gunpei was a long-time employee of Nintendo and was once a game designer for the company. He's most notable for the creation of Kid Icarus and Metroid. This game room doesn't just serve as a museum of sorts, but it also is used as a play area because if you're gonna have video games, you can't just let them sit around collecting dust. Sander's game room is a mix of arcade machines, carefully arranged display cabinets brimful with collectibles, and great wall decorations. The special lighting arrangements and overall attention to detail give his room a museum-like quality. He has quite a few pieces in his collection that have us salivating at the thought of them. But one in particular is his collection of complete sets of Vectrex and the Philips Videopack games. The Vectrex is just historically cool because it was the first and only home-based system to use a vector-based screen as well as offer a 3D peripheral for games. And his fascination with both consoles and games from the 1980s is amazing. Oh, and did we mention he lives on a houseboat near Amsterdam? How cool is that? Terrifying to think what might happen if it sinks, though. What? Someone had to say it. Honorable mention: World's Largest Game Boy. So this next entry just deserves an honorable mention because it's something we're sure any Nintendo fan would want to add to their collection. A giant Game Boy. When we think about the tech world, we realize how it's constantly evolving and changing, and with those changes come things like bigger screens. But there's also the debate of smaller is better and can fit conveniently anywhere. No matter what side of the debate you're on though, we think that you guys can get behind the idea that a giant Game Boy is exactly what the world needs. A 21-year-old Belgian software developer named Ilhan Unal set a Guinness World Record by building the largest functioning Game Boy ever, which he called the Game Boy XXL. The name seems pretty fitting for this 101 by 62 by 20 centimeter gaming system. Look at this thing, it's huge! Every pixel is like the size of my head. It also features oversized versions of everything Nintendo's original 1989 handheld device had, including a D-pad and buttons. The back contains a familiar cartridge port where real Game Boy games like Tetris and Pokemon can be played powered by a Raspberry Pi. So as far as we're concerned, the Game Boy XXL is what the world needs, and especially all of these outrageous video game collectors. We saw some pretty great collections with extremely rare Nintendo items today. If you had your very own Nintendo collection, what would be a must-have thing to own? Tell us what you would choose in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and we hope you'll join us next time.